The human body consists of 70% water. It is one of the most powerful elements on Earth. In the U.S., there are many important rivers which provide electricity to an ever-increasing nation. Throughout the many years, population has become more and more conscious about the importance of keeping the water supply clean for all kinds of consumption. The Chattahoochee River is the lifeblood of the 4 million people in Atlanta, Georgia metropolitan area, providing for drinking water, electric power, irrigation for agriculture, waste and water treatment, recreation, and many other uses. It is always under threat from development, pollution, drought, and an ever-increasing population.
The Chattahoochee River begins in the Blue Ridge Mountains at approximately 3,500 feet, and up until the late 17th century was a source of life and transportation for Native American tribes. Once the Spanish and British colonies began to expand, however, its primary purpose was to divide the land between the Native Americans and the explorers of the New World. The Creek Indians were forced to hand over all lands east of the river, official in 1826. However, despite this agreement between the two, colonists continued to push westward. The importance of the Chattahoochee River grew ferociously before and during the Civil War. As a medium for transportation, the river became synonymous with commerce. The geography of the river was perfectly placed, running straight through prime cotton land. Because of this, shipping cotton to sell and disperse was never easier. One may ask, how is shipping upstream all that much easier from land? This is precisely where the next great commercial achievement comes into play, the steamboat. Following the Civil War, steamboat technology enhanced greatly. More people began using this engineering spectacle to travel. However, all of this convenience was not to come without a price. Not long after the war, the river's first ecological crisis emerged. Heavy sedimentation was reported in the river, likely due to the steamboat's turning of the water and heavy trafficking. This was recorded up until the river commerce slowed and the Chattahoochee River was no longer one of the most important rivers east of the Mississippi. It wasn't until the 1960s that pollution in the Chattahoochee River really started to gain notice by the public. Up to this point, many villages in Georgia and Alabama directly ran their sewage into the river, horribly polluting it. Even after the cities started treating their waste, many companies still dumped their refuse into the river. The fact that Atlanta was so close to the river did not help the situation either. All of the pollution and dumping done by the city would flow downstream towards other cities and towns. The mid-1960s presented a new kind of protesting revolving around the waterways of America. The river keepers, as they came to be known, began legally battling the city of New York because of the amount of sewage drained from the city into the Hudson River. The group of people protesting relied on the river heavily as a source of recreation and commerce. The idea spread, and by the 1990s there were a total of 18 riverkeeper programs across the country.
In 1980, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, metropolitan Atlanta was registered to have over 2 million residents. The Chattahoochee River has suffered detrimental abuse over time, but constant non-stopping growth of urbanization. In the 80s, urbanization started to really pick up in the metropolitan area of Atlanta, consequently bringing a great increase in inappropriate waste on the river. The river started to suffer a broad range of contamination factors. These were and still are the main and most dangerous to the population: biological waste, asphalt waste, metal wastes, and sewer wastes. The metropolitan population was not conscious of the harmful practices and the major impact being caused to the environment. The Chattahoochee River is the main provider of water for the whole state of Georgia and even some outside states. Asphalt, being a main construction material, was extremely abused during the 80s due to urbanization of the metropolitan area. Population growth allowed for the city of Atlanta to start building bigger roads and larger buildings. Asphalt and other construction materials such as toxic metals have two principal ways to travel to the river, either by direct waste from dump trucks or by rainfall. As time progressed into the 90s and population growth increased, so did urbanization and contamination of the river. During this time period, the river was classified by the EPA as endangered, and few members of the metropolitan community were fed up by the lack of control from the government to regulate waste on the river. According to William Ensing, professor of biology and zoology at Kansas State University, unregulated land use associated with urban sprawl is by far the most significant threat to Georgia's waterways today. While sprawl is not polluting in the traditional sense, it creates an environment that produces compounds that are detrimental to the aquatic systems. It also creates additional demands for consumptive water use that can threaten the availability of the substance critical for the maintenance of aquatic systems. Ensign has spent years studying the waterways of Georgia and the local aquatic life.
Atlanta resident Sally Bethea became the river's voice and protector. She gathered a group of advocates and started to make the community conscious of the many contamination issues being produced by the community and the lack of control from the government. She became the director of the Upper Chattahoochee River Keeper, otherwise known as the UCR, established in 1904. Bethea, along with other advocates and the help of billionaire Ted Turner, took an aggressive and bold move to sue the city of Atlanta. During an interview with Bethea, she mentioned the lawsuit was hard and time-consuming, but in the end, the city of Atlanta accepted responsibility for negligence and river contamination. She mentioned that after the lawsuit, many truths came to light, such as how the city of Atlanta possessed a very unclear blueprint of the entire sewer system, and that there was no plan for how the river would be cleaned up and the sewer system improved. Since the successful lawsuit, the sewer system has been improved by the city of Atlanta. However, population growth has increased exponentially, leaving almost no room for solid, eco-friendly improvements to the system. In the last decade, the river was taken out of the endangered list by the EPA. However, the sewer system is still a major contributor to river contamination. During strong storms and rainy seasons, the sewer system becomes overwhelmed, and wastes from the metropolitan area find a direct way to the river, carrying extremely dangerous numbers of E. coli bacteria. One recent issue was spotted in Flat Creek. According to officials, there was a massive fish death. The Wildlife Resources Division found 137 dead fish. Investigations were made, and officials found a gray sludge and putrescent floating debris and foam entering the Flat Creek through storm drains from the Pilgrim's Pride poultry processing plant. Another recent issue was last year when the Upper Chattahoochee River Keeper organized 2 meetings to learn about the state's progress in developing a cleanup plan for Lake Lanier. The lake was officially labeled as impaired since the UCR reported data that showed the levels of chlorophyll A in the lake were below standard, which could cause algae bloom and therefore kill almost every single fish in the lake. Atlanta City has truly taken a primary role in the conservation of the river and has established strong bonds with organizations such as the UCR to make sure that the river is being cleaned up and the sewer system improved. Many see this issue as futile since the government's credibility has decreased over the years due to other factors not concerning the river, the main one being the economy and the constant deficit of the city of Atlanta.
The recently renewed Metropolitan River Protection Act, MRPA, initially enacted in 1973 by the Georgia General Assembly,